Hi there, data scamps and data champs. This is Richie. So, this is part 3 of the AI assisted Python series. So, for those of you who were here earlier in the week, welcome back. And for everyone else, welcome. So, it's going to be a standalone session, so you don't need to have taken the previous sessions in order to make sense of what's going on today. But that said, you can check out the links to the recordings of the previous sessions. Reese is going to post them in the chat shortly. And so the point of all these sessions this week is just about getting you comfortable making use of AI when you're writing Python code for data science or data analysis. And the big change here is that it's going to require a different workflow to just, well, okay, I'm writing all the code myself. So as we go through this, I would suggest worry less about like the individual bits of syntax that are being written and more about like, well, what's the approach you should take in order to do good data analysis, good data science when you're making use of AI. So the focus for today's session is going to be around introducing some business use cases. In particular, we've been talking about analyzing customer feedback, very important use case in almost all businesses. So that's what we're going to do today. And our guest is Francesca Donadoni. She's an AI curriculum manager here at DataCamp. And so that means she creates and plans all the courses and projects related to AI. So before her time at DataCamp, she was a specialist in computer vision research at the startups Catalai and Arthronica. So yeah, with that, please take it away, Francesca.
Thank you, Richie, for the introduction, and hello, everyone, and welcome to this code along. I hope you're as excited as I am to learn about AI, Python, and how we can combine them to really explore this customer feedback data set. So in this session, we'll walk through the process of analyzing the data set, and we'll use, as Richie said, a combination of Python and the A-Power tool that is available as part of Data Lab. The idea is that you won't need any familiarity with specific Python functions, just a very high-level introductory coding will do to follow along, and we'll mostly be using this AI-Power tool. So you're welcome to follow along on our data workbook, and in case you'd prefer to watch first, we also have a solution workbook that you can use to practice later. Before we begin, I prepared like a couple of slides, and I hope you can see, just to introduce some concepts that we'll be using. So first, the data is data from a hospitality business, which also includes some synthetic data, and it's a very good data set for this case because we are going to have some structured data, but also some free text in the form of reviews. Our primary goal will be to understand what the sentiment of the customer is, meaning are they negative about our company, which is a hotel, or are they positive? And secondarily, to find some common trends in the customer feedback. But really, we want to leverage the most this new AI feature to analyze our customer satisfaction data set. So in terms of what we'll be doing, so you might have heard, if you've ever taken a survey online about the question, how likely is it that you would recommend this product or service to your friend or colleague? So this seems like, it might seem like a trivial question, but it's actually used for determining something called the NPS, which is also known as the Net Promoter Score. And it's really a score to gauge the overall level of customer loyalty for your brand, your service, or your product, or the hotel in this case. And how it's calculated is based on this question and the choice from 0 to 10, based on how the customers score. So we have that from 0 to 6. If the customer scores from 0 to 6, they are called detractors. So they're quite negative, really, about the service. For 7 or 8, they are passive. So they don't really have, they're quite neutral. They don't really have an opinion. And then 9 and 10 are your promoters. So they are very enthusiastic about the service. So we'll be using the column in the data set that refers to this question to calculate this first. And then next, we'll be doing some sentiment analysis and topic modeling on the reviews column. And this is really more of a overall natural language understanding of the text. We'll be using the reviews. So this is free text. It doesn't have a score. There's going to be a lot of words for single reviews that we'll have to synthesize, understand through sentiment analysis if they're negative or positive, but also the maybe identifying some themes, like if they are positive, why are they positive? What would maybe struck the most the customers, and if they are negative as well, even more so. So by the end of the session, you'll hopefully know how to apply these techniques to your data set and extract helpful insights for your business. Let's get started and jump to the notebook. So here, again, hope you can see I've just summarized these key concepts at the beginning of the notebook for you to keep. So these are just a summary of what we just gone over, and we can pretty much get started. So as you can see from the tab here, we have data saved already in the notebook, and it's called guest data, and it's in an XLS format, which is Excel. We already have some idea on which libraries we want to use, in this case pandas and plotly. Even if you didn't have an idea on the library to use, maybe it's the very first time beginning with analyzing data in Python, the AI would still be able to recommend it to you. I just selected them because I like working with pandas for data frames. I find it really easy to use. And in terms of visualization, I think Plotly is a very good library, especially for this case, as you can, for example, hover over and see what your data looks like. So in this case, this is the only cell that I will code myself for the whole duration of the code along, and it's really just to import these two libraries. So to start with, I want to direct the AI tool to my dataset. So I do want to give them at least the name of the dataset and just ask to import it and show the first 5 rows just to understand what the dataset look like. Let's try this out with a Python cell, and then you can see, as you've seen maybe in the previous sessions, or maybe you've used Data Lab before, there is an option to tell your AI what to do. And here I will just paste my prompt. So let's see what code it's come up with. It's written a read Excel function, which is a function in pandas to import data in Excel. So this looks great. I'm going to accept and run. And here we go. We can see our data set. So we can see already that it looks like some columns might have missing values. So that would be interesting for later. Then we have a full name column, which has been our names that have been de-identified, and then some data about the customers. So, and what I do want to look for is really this question that we'll be using for calculating the NPS score. So if we have any of these in our column. So here, so if you hover over, again, you should see the full name of the column. How likely are you to recommend us to a friend or a colleague? So it's a good start because we already have this present in the data set, and we have scores from 0 to 10. So we'll be able to use this for our NPS score. Let's have a look at the other columns. We have different indicators on different aspects of the hotel. And finally, a column called review, which it seems to be storing the free text, the natural language type reviews that we're looking for our sentiment analysis and finding of topics, topic modeling. Great. So now I've only seen 5 rows. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that actually we have enough data for this analysis, and I want to get an idea of how many rows is the data set composed of. So I open another Python cell and I ask, what's the total length of the data set? Let's see what it comes back with. Again, if you're a bit familiar with pandas, you will recognize the len function, which measures the length of the data set. So we see, more than 1,000 rows. I think that's a pretty good data set to try and spot some trends. So I think we can keep it, we continue. And the other thing is we noticed that there were probably some missing values. So especially here at the top with the start time, completion time, emails, names. So I do want to see if there are, how many missing values there are and where are they. And so I'm just going to ask a general question because, just want to explore the missing value. And I'm just going to ask, how would you identify missing values in the data set? Let's see. So it's using isNull, which is, again, a pandas function to identify non-values on the data frame and then summing them to see for each column what will be the number of missing values. So I'm going to run this. And it shows that actually, as we noticed, 4 of the columns have completely missing values. So it looks like the start time, completion time, email, and name, we don't have any data for, which is fine because really what we need for our analysis is mostly the how likely are you to recommend us and the reviews column, which we can see they don't have any missing values. And so I would say let's proceed. So I noticed there's one missing value from the gym indicator, and then also for just general cleanliness of the data set, we should probably remove these columns if there's no values in them. And so what I'm going to ask is, how would you remove the missing values? Let's open another Python cell and see what the code does. So this is interesting because it's using drop_na, so which is the function to drop the missing values from the data frame. But the way it's using it, I'm going to show you what it does. And you see that it's completely cleaned the data set. So now we don't have a data set anymore, which obviously we don't want. And the reason why this is happening is that drop_na is applied for each row that has got a missing value. So what is done is it's gone back and deleted all the rows that had missing values in any of the columns, which is all the rows because we don't have values in any of the rows for these 4 columns. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify to first remove the columns with missing values, and then remove the rows with missing values. And let's see if it understands what to do, and this time we have a clean data set. So yes, it's dropping on axis =1, which means it's going to drop the columns, and then it's going to remove the rows with missing value. Let's see. So you see now it's much better. We still have our data set. We have that is cleaned up the columns that were only composed of missing values, and we still have, let me see, we still have the review column. We still have our question for the recommendation. Okay, so something else that we can do as part of this exploratory exploratory point. So we know that we are interested in recommendation score, so in this column, and we know that this is numerical data. So maybe we can ask for plotting a distribution. So here I have a prompt asking for the distribution. Again, I'm gonna see what the result is in terms of the code. So again, you see it's using Seaborn, which is a different Python library. It's still good, but this time I want to use Plotly. So I'm going to specify, please use Plotly. Let's see. Yeah, so it's plotting the question, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? And it's plotting as an histogram. So I'm going to accept and run. Okay, let's see what the result is. So we have quite a few detractors, what are called detractors. So quite a few customers gave us from 0 to 6. And then most of them seem to be neutral. So we won't be counting them as part of the NPS score. And then we have only a few that are positive. So it doesn't look very positive at the moment, but we'll see in the next section how to really calculate a NPS using all the data that we have. So again, the column that we're interested in is our question, and we're going to ask to classify. We have to classify. The first step, as we saw in the Net Promoter Score calculation, is that we classify based on the score as a detractor, promoter, or passive customer. And I'm going to ask to do that without specifying the column. I just want to see if it picks the correct column in the data frame and how it does that, how it handles that. Yeah, so it's created a function. The function takes in the score from the column. And then for each score, it's going to look at if it's greater or equal to 9, it's going to classify as promoter. For the remaining one, if it's greater or equal to 7, it's a passive customer, and then everyone else is a detractor. The way that it's applying it is it's taking the data set that we've cleaned. And one thing that I do want to do is to make sure that this DF cleaned is the last version of the data set that we have. And yes, so we can see it from here. I want to make sure that it's the one that, yeah, with the missing values dropped, which looks like it is, because sometimes, it would maybe in other analysis that I've done, it would like take a different version of the data frame if you don't specify. So this is just like a good check to do. Okay, and let's continue then. So it's taken the correct column, which I think is quite impressive actually, that it recognized the column just from my question without me specifying it, and then applies the function that it's written. So let's accept and run. See what the column, so the column that is created is this NPS category column that we should see at the end of the data frame. And in fact, yeah, we have it here. We can do like a quick check. So for example, the first is a promoter, the second is a detractor. Let's see what the scores were. And it was a 9 and a 4. So just a quick spot checking, but it seems like it's working. The other thing, so after we've got promoters, passives, and detractors, we need to calculate the ratio of how many these are. And so I can ask again a question. I don't have to be too specific, it looks like. So I'm just going to keep asking like quite general question and see what it does as a oh, I see there's a question about the gym column. So yes, the gym column has been removed. So the way that we could have done it, I'm not going to redo it because we don't really need the gym column, but if you wanted to eliminate the rows, only the row where the data was, where the missing data was, it would have just been to have a more specific prompt saying remove the row for which the missing value is found. I would have done it that way. But in this case, for this specific analysis, we don't need the gym column, so I kept it removed. You can do it. It depends really on what analysis you want to do. If, for example, you are focusing on this gym aspect, it's probably good to remove the data that is missing, like the whole customer for which it is missing. But in this case, I think just removing the whole column is not, we are looking at more of a high level feedback. So yeah, it's fine to keep the customer for which there was no gym feedback. So what, going back to the NPS, we have the NPS category, and what it's doing is calculating with the value counts function, which is a pandas function, using the normalize parameter, setting it to true. So this basically calculates the number, so the value for each category, and then divides it by the total, and then multiplies by 100. So the whole calculation here, even if it's done in only one line of code, and yeah, I would have probably taken more lines, but it's calculating the percentage of each of the categories: promoters, passive, and detractors. Let's see what the percentages are. So yeah, as we had noticed from the histogram as well, it looks like there's quite a few neutral ones, and then a larger number of detractors actually than promoters. So it seems like the feedback is quite negative. We can also ask to calculate the overall NPS, and we can also ask for a small interpretation. So what I've noticed is it doesn't normally give very conversational interpretations, but it sometimes gives you like in this case, so short, easy ways to interpret it through code. So, for example, what is done here is taken all the someone is saying so many detractors. Yes, business is not going very well. Like that's why we're analyzing the feedback. It's probably we're seeing maybe some negativity around the service. So yeah, it's one of those cases. But yeah, let's see what is done. Going back to the overall NPS, so I selected the columns for which, for example, the NPS category is promoter, taken the shape. So the dot shape function in pandas gives you the number of rows and the number of columns. And so you want to get the number of rows by indexing with the 0. So the very first figure that comes up is your number of rows from the shape function. And so that's how you could also do length of this with the len function that we saw earlier for calculating calculating the overall length of the data frame. It does the same for passive and detractors, and also for the total responses, to have the total number of responses. And then what it does is it takes away the detractors from the promoters and normalizes it so over the total responses by 100. And then it gives you a bit of an interpretation, but it's just to say if it's positive, negative, or neutral. So actually, I don't find this part very helpful. I think we can ask, and that's why I've asked another question. But first, let's see what the what the code does. So we have 21 minus 21, so definitely negative feedback. And what I want to do is also to ask a bit more of clarification about what this means for customer loyalty, because the NPS score has quite a big range. So maybe minus 21 is not as bad, but I have a feeling it is. And in general, it can go from a negative to a positive, and up to from minus 100 to plus 100. So I just want to understand, what does this indicate about my customers? Let's try it out. So it gives me this definition, which is if you try and look for more definitions of NPS, it's also quite widely accepted. So above 50 is very good customer loyalty. Between 0 and 50 is good. And then between minus 50 and 0 is poor customer loyalty. And anything below minus 50 is really bad. And it gives you this classification of the figure that we got, minus 21. So it's saying definitely poor customer loyalty. So what we want to do is, sorry, there is a question before I move to the next section. The definition for neutral of figures that are above 7. So it's just a way to calculate this score. I know that normally above 5 is positive on a scale of 0 to 10, but it's just a way to, so because it's a score for promoters, so someone who is really very motivated to promote your service, it has to be, a positive one is really only a 9 or 10. Below that, 7 and 8 is a neutral, which I understand is above 5, but it's because someone really needs to be super motivated to promote it, on top of already using the service. So that's sort of the explanation that I found. Okay. So moving to the sentiment analysis. So to recap, we've seen that there's poor customer loyalty. The NPS score is low. We do have, however, still quite a lot of data to go through in our data set. We can make use of them. And so what we want to do is to see first if the reviews match our NPS score. So if the sentiment of the reviews is also negative, we just want to have this comparison. And so what I'll do is there's a lot of models that you can use that are pre-made and they're open source. And I just want to ask if using a pre-trained model, we can analyze the sentiment in our reviews. Let's see what we got. So this is great, and I'm going to run it. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to just explain what it does, because there is quite a lot packed in this code. And even though it looks quite short, so we have functions that have quite a lot going on in the background. And just to start it running, I'm gonna run the code. Before, I prefer to explain the code before running it, but and it looks like actually it's already done. So it was quite quick as well. You might see, just a word of caution, like when you first run this, if you're using Data Lab, you might get asked for external libraries to be installed. Just so, for example, sometimes I get asked to install TF-Keras. That could be the case. So I just saw that someone got an error due to transformers. So what you can try is just pip install TF-Keras. I'm not going to do it because it takes a bit of time to run, but I would suggest just trying that. So just to go back to what the code is doing, we have here pipeline from the transformers library. The transformers library is a very good library from Hugging Face, where you can find tools to instantiate most models, including LLMs, and most of them are open source, so you won't need keys to run them, and they're pretty straightforward to implement. But just to iterate that, yes, there's there's quite a lot going on, even though you only see one function being called. And what it's doing is instantiating the pipeline for sentiment analysis. So that means it's initializing this transformers model, sentiment analysis model, which behind runs a transformer model, and applying it to the review. And this is a way to unpack the result. So it knows that from the sentiment analysis model, we will get a result that needs to be indexed, and then the actual sentiment will come under this label key, and applies it to all of our reviews. So now if we see, for example, the first 5 rows, we can see that it's categorized the reviews as positive, negative, depending on the sentiment. Someone got a different model. That's interesting. And so this is, I think, is a very good time to just iterate on that and clarify that with these type of work. So if you're relying fully on the AI tool, you will probably get different answers every time you run the analysis. It doesn't mean that they are wrong. One of them is right and one of them is wrong. It just means that there's lots of different ways to get to the solution. And I think as you become more familiar with these tools, you will be better equipped to decide which solution is for you. So, for example, this model has categorized positive or negative. It doesn't. It looks like it hasn't categorized any neutral ones, but we can check that later. Maybe you need something a little bit more nuanced, so you can search for a model that also includes the neutral sentiment, and you can ask your AI to use one of these models, or even you can just directly ask, can you use this model to, so let's say, you have a specific model name in mind, can you use this model to run the analysis, and you will see if there is an option to do that. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So what I want to do a quick check of what the data looks like is that I want to see if the distribution is similar to what I had from the NPS score. And to do that, again, I'm going to ask to show to show the distribution. Again, sorry, it's plot with Seaver. I should ask to plot with Plotly. So it just creates something that we can interact with a little bit more. There's a error with Plotly. So probably it didn't. We can also, so with Data Lab, we can also ask the cell itself to find to find the error, and actually is saying that there is no index column, but there is an index column. So I think, so the index should be sentiment, but it's not an index, which makes sense. Maybe, so the columns should be, the index should be index, I think. And yeah, I shouldn't rename the column, sorry. Reset index, so it should be sentiment, and then I think I just want to see a histogram. I just want to see a histogram of the categories, really, so I'm just going to ask for that. Let's see if that one works. Yeah, so it's this is like something that can happen. So what it was trying to do, it was trying to look for some numbers for the category, the amount of positives and the amount of negatives, and we didn't really have that in the data set. So I just had to look at what was what the code was doing, what our data set looks like. This might be a bit, if you're at the very beginning, maybe just go with what the AI suggests in terms of libraries, but always make sure that the result. Try to have some checks that the result that you're getting is in line with your data, because it might pick, for example, columns that you're not, or be very specific with the prompt. That's something also to use. So for example, if you have a column specifically that already is going to be your x-axis, definitely specify. I think now for the webinar, we are trying to do this quickly and have quite a lot of content in it. So maybe we are a bit high level with the prompts. And it's also just to show really the power of Data Lab and what you can do. You can give quite general prompts, but then, sometimes we get some errors. So now we have the count of positives, which is only 279, and versus more than 800 negatives. So this also matches what we had seen with the NPS score. So, okay, I'm definitely convinced that there is something negative about this service. So we can ask, how would you interpret the sentiment distribution? But I think it's quite clear. We have quite a bit of negative sentiment. I'm gonna just do this for the purpose of a demonstration, and really I'm just curious what it's gonna do. So you see, it's going to, similarly to earlier with the NPS score, calculates how many of the different categories there are for the column, and then calculates the percentage. I'm gonna accept and run. In the meantime, see, there's a question about transformers. It is, we can also talk about it later in the Q&A, but it is the backbone of many models. It's not one single model. Transformers is the name of the library in Hugging Face. So when I do import transformers, transformers is the full library that includes also models. So you see, we've got percentages. It's about 75% negative. So at this point, I think we're definitely convinced that we're receiving quite negative feedback. What we can do from the reviews is we can try and find some common trends, some common themes that can help us maybe fix certain aspects. We're an hotel business, so maybe there is something going on with, I don't know, the food we're serving or the location. let's see how we can do this. So first question that I would ask is if there are some common keywords in the reviews. And this is, again, quite a general question. So I'm curious to see what solution is suggested. So this is what is suggested is mainly to use this count vectorizer function. And this is a function from scikit-learn. Again, another Python libraries, different from pandas. It has a lot of machine learning models. It's very focused on machine learning. And count vectorizer help us count words in a way that is not really too refined. So it's really counting pretty much word by word. And what it does, I see here, like it's set stop words for English. This means that it's not going to count those words such as the or that, words that can be really quite common but not have much meaning. And this is, I think this is something quite good that is done. And then max features to 20. So it's only going to count the top 20 words, which makes the analysis a bit more focused. And then what it needs to do is it needs to fit it to the reviews. So it's going to only take the reviews column. Actually, I noticed that it dropped the missing values again, even though it didn't need to because we had already done it, but it doesn't know that. So yeah, I wouldn't have done it if I was coding it myself, but it's just something that it probably does pretty much by default to make sure the data is clean. And then we get the word count for each of these words. So what it does at the end is also creating a new data frame with the words and the word count for each word. But let's see the code. So here we go. So you see we have words that are, most of them actually, not all of them, but most of them, have quite a helpful meaning. Things like room, food, that's only the start of our analysis. So even though it might not seem very helpful for the moment, it is, I think it is quite impressive that it's done that in 26 lines with a very, very broad question that we've asked there. And so this is one type of analysis. There's a lot more that you can do with machine learning and extracting keywords, themes, topics. Something that I do want to try. I don't know if it's going to work because sometimes you need like quite specific libraries, and so it might send us to a library that we cannot use. But I want to try and ask if it can extract some key topics using embeddings. Embeddings are sort of larger themes, so not counting word by word anymore, but trying to see the bigger themes. So let me try this one, and we're almost at the end. So yeah, so actually it's used another function, which is TFID vectorizer, which is similar to count vectorizer. It's a little bit more sophisticated in terms that it doesn't just count the words frequencies. It gives actually more weight to words that are specific to individual reviews. So words that appear in several reviews will have less meaning, less weight in this. And the slightly complicated thing is that it needs to be paired with another algorithm for, so it's for counting these words. So here broadly, it is quite a lot of code, I do realize, but it's really just to show that it can also do quite advanced machine learning. And obviously, if we weren't stretched for time, we would be checking this by line. But I think this shows you, a slightly more advanced technique that is not just simply counting the words. Let's see. I think it's so you see, like, you start to see the way that it works is that it has topics and then words for each topic. So it's sort of grouped by broader topic. It's grouped the reviews based on words that go together more. So we have things like cleanliness. This could be a theme. So maybe we found out that we're not doing very well in terms of cleaning our hotels. And we have, other topics. So these here, actually, I think the words are still, some of them not very meaningful. For example, need or things like stay, I can see appearing in like very many reviews for when we're talking about a hotel. But I think, with a more sophisticated training, we would get to really a good abstraction of topics. And so we still have a couple of minutes. The final thing that I wanted to do, and is really to use this tool that I really like, that's called the word cloud for visualization. So when you have analysis like these, when you have words surfacing from free text, I think it's quite nice to have these word cloud representation. I'm gonna just show it again. I'm gonna just ask it as a general question. There is a library for that. Yeah, so there is this library called word cloud to generate word clouds when you have topics so when you have groups of words for each topic. And so I'm going to show you because I think it's easier to have it on the screen. So you see, the bigger the word, you might have seen this in maybe a report. So the bigger the word, the bigger the size of the word, the more important it is. So we definitely have cleanliness. That seems to be an issue. We have some more words here. I think maybe food could be a theme here. And again, the other topics, I don't see many, like maybe dining. So we have dining and food. These could be two topics to look into. The bigger words, I think, still they don't give us much meaning, like things like good experience. But with different I think trying different algorithms for this and having maybe more training on the vectorizer, spending more time training, I think will result in a better visualization as well. And I think overall we've probably looks like the cleanliness and the food might be two issues. So I would leave it at that for now, and I would open it up for questions.
Nice. Thank you for that, Francesca. That was very cool stuff. And I like the way you go from like simple stuff, which is like a little bit of data analysis, like working with NPS scores is very much like number crunching, and then you can get to like the cool visualizations when you start getting into like analyzing text. It's a bit more sophisticated, but you can also pick out insights that are different from what just like a simple score is going to give you. Cool. All right. So we've got loads of questions from the audience. Before we get to that, so I know Reese posted a link to there was a discount code for Data Lab. There's also DataCamp promotion running at the moment. So I think if Reach can post a link to that as well. So if you want a discount off the Learn product for taking DataCamp courses. So yeah, in the chat now, if you're interested in discount DataCamp. The other thing before we go to questions is that we've got some more webinars coming up next week. So I hope you do come back for more sessions. So on Tuesday, we're doing a session on better data storytelling. So my colleague Adele is doing a session on 8 rules for better data storytelling. On Wednesday, it's me and Adele talking about the DataCamp roadmap. So find out what is coming soon to DataCamp. And then on Thursday, we've got a session slightly more manager focused. This is on the difference between AI regulations in the US and the EU. So the EU AI Act is, of course, a very big, important piece of AI regulation. So for anyone who works with AI, you need to know about that. And there's a load of regulations in the US as well. All right, so do come back for those sessions next week. Now, with that, let's go to audience questions. So, this is a good one from Belina. So, Bellini says the AI option is great. Should we be concerned we may become too dependent on it for coding? Is the valid concern? Short answer is yes. But Francesca, do you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, I think it's almost a philosophical question. So I can stop sharing the screen because I think we can't really answer it with data lab. But yeah, I think probably that's a valid concern. I think the way to think about it is like that it's still a tool to support your work. So like I think you shouldn't like solely rely on it. But at the same time, it really gives you such a boost when you're working compared to years ago when you would have to keep in your memory all the different functions and if not you would have to Google them, and then it would take you a long time and like sift through like pages of blogs to find the solution. I think this is such a step forward in generating code, and obviously like we always keep in mind checks, doing checks, doing things like what we did before, okay, like we've gotten this solution, maybe let's try this other way to see if it also agrees, or maybe let's try to prompt it in a way that it gives me a bit of an explanation. So I think these are the things that we can do, and to like keep building in this new way.
Absolutely. So I guess my take on this, one of my hobbies, I like going backpacking, and there's a sort of saying in the backpacking community that like technology is great until it doesn't, until you don't have it. So like if you're stuck out in the middle of the wilderness, it's cool to have like a GPS mapping app on your smartphone, but as soon as you lose signal, it causes problems. If you drop your smartphone in a creek, which I have done several times, I'm surprised this thing still works. Then yeah, you're without it, and you need a backup plan. So in that case, you want like a paper map and a compass, but sometimes the paper map blows away in the wind, and you probably want to have another backup plan, which is like having like where you are in your brain. And the same is true with AI assisted coding. You need some kind of way to deal with like what happens when the AI service goes down. Like you probably want to be able to write some code yourself, so you're not just sat twiddling your thumbs for 4 hours while the OpenAI engineers fix whatever the problem is. So yeah, being able to code yourself is incredibly important still. All right, so let me see. There's a really good question from Rex. So when you're going through, you're looking for a transform solution. So Rex said you got a text blob solution. Now, this is a really important thing because AI, like, it's not deterministic. You're going to get different answers each time. Francesca, how do you deal with this? The fact that you could get something different.
Yeah, so normally, like what I personally do is if I get different solution, I try to look for them. So this I take, the more traditional way. If I see different solutions that look, they look like quite similar to me, and it seems like there's no difference, I try to look for them and do a bit more like investigation online to see if sometimes there are small differences that could really be make your analysis, better or worse, like depending on your use case. That there, most of the times with these models, there isn't a good model and a bad model. It's just about applying the right model to your use case. So yeah, you gotten text blob, it's a different model, but depending on which use case you have, it might work fine, like just fine. Like it's, I think if you're not sure, always like look for the different options. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it feels like a slightly unsolved problem, the fact that you can't have like perfect reproducibility each time. But yeah, as long as you are there looking at what the solution is, then that's it's going to make things easier. And if you explicitly ask for different like packages, it's usually pretty good about providing them. So I mean, yeah, we saw this in the session earlier in the week with Yashis, where he was trying to create plots with Plotly. If you don't ask explicitly for Plotly, it's going to give you matplotlib just because there's more matplotlib code in existence, even though I complain about this every time. Matplotlib's horrible, but so many people use it that that's the kind of the default thing that gets generated. So yeah, just be a bit opinionated about what you want and include that in the prompt. Nice. All right. So there's a question from Shreyansh about like how does the AI feature in Data Lab work? Yeah, it's currently powered by GPTs, the OpenAI model. So we use the API for that, but we also do a lot of prompt engineering to make sure that you get really good information. So, for example, in the notebook, you've got all sorts of like variables that exist. You've got the previous code, which is important context. So what happens in the cells beforehand? So we send all of that to the OpenAI API. So just like, yeah, what was the last code you wrote? What exists? Like, what are the values of the data? And then because that's included in the prompt along with your question, you then get a much better response. And then also do some work just cleaning up what the response is to extract like the valid bits of code from that, because sometimes the API will return a response that isn't just code. It'll tell you something else, just like, hey, yeah, this is a fun piece of code. So we do a lot of work to clean things up, which basically means that when you use Data Lab, it's a lot more efficient. It'll, like, you get better responses than just like throwing your code in or throwing your prompt into ChatGPT. All right, super. There's how much time we got? We got a couple of minutes left, so let's go for this question from Aga. So you were talking through about using keywords within the sentiment analysis. Can you just talk through what happens with can you use this for negative sentiment rows?
yes, definitely. So what I would have done is I would probably have asked to filter. So as maybe I can quickly share my screen like in the last minute, but to quickly filter for the words, so here we have used the full DF cleaned data frame. Instead of using this, I would have asked to clean it up and only select where the sentiment was negative. So similar to what is done to clear up when it was counting. So something similar to this, where it selects a column and then it clears up for only that value of the column. And this way you get only the rows corresponding to that category. And then you can proceed with pretty much the same analysis as we've done, just for the data for the new data frame that you have only for the negatives.
All right, nice. Okay, with that, we're gonna finish up. Before you all jump off, I would say please do hit like on the video. The more likes we get, the more free sessions we can run. Also, feel free to share it with your colleague, friends, anyone you like. Again, the more people watching this, the more free sessions we can run. So please do that. And I hope to see you all again next week. We've got some great sessions coming up. So thank you once again, Francesca. Very, very cool stuff. It's such an important business problem, like understanding like what do your customers like, what do your customers hate. Very useful stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks to Reese for moderating. Thank you to everyone who asked a question. Thank you to everyone who showed up today. So yeah, see you all again soon. Right.